Your top story, the battle lines are drawn in the ANC succession race. The ANC Youth League has endorsed Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma as its preferred candidate to lead the party after the elective conference in December. The ANC Youth League's endorsement of Dlamini Zuma comes after the MKMVA announced the same leader to take over from President Jacob Zuma. The Youth League also hit out at the strategy and tactics document as moving the ANC away from the people in support of the capital. The League said white monopoly capital remained the enemy of the National Democratic Revolution. Meanwhile, the ANC Youth League's announcement of its preferred candidates raises questions about the leadership race beginning ahead of the policy conference. Here are the main resolutions of the ANC Youth League. White monopoly capital remains the enemy of the National Democratic Revolution. ANC Youth League wants comrades who will advocate for radical economic transformation to lead the ANC. ANC leadership must advance for the policy of expropriation of land without compensation. Strategy and tactics document must not shy away from dealing with white monopoly capital. All ANC structures will be engaged on ANC Youth League's proposition for leadership positions.
The ANC Youth League has therefore debated on this leadership question and believes that comrades who must lead the organization are as follows. Comrade Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma is the president of the ANC Youth League. Comrade David Mabuza is the deputy president of the ANC. Comrade Ace Magashule is the Secretary General of the ANC. Comrade Natim Tetwa is the National Chair of the ANC. DSG for Monitoring and Evaluation, Comrade Jesse Duarte. DSG for Organizing and Campaigns, Comrade Fikile Mbalula. And the Treasurer General, Comrade Maite Ngoane Mashabane. These will be the names that the ANC Youth League will grow across the country and interact with the structures of the organization and advance for them to be elected as leaders of the ANC. This will come to after having been very disciplined, knowing that the leadership question had been closed but has since been opened.
There's nothing special about Cyril, okay, or about any member of the African National Congress, because the constitution of the ANC, which guides us, says that every member of the organization, including Cyril and Nkosazana, has the right to elect and to be elected to any position. So we are guided by that particular constitutional principle. And we must say that we respect comrades, including Comrade TP, Cyril Ramaphosa. However, the view of the Youth League is that Mama Nkosazana must be president now. So we're not going to gauge comrades' qualities and all of that. We will not enter into that space. But I would say that the comrade qualifies to be elected.
The ANC Youth League noted that the strategy and tactics document seems to be shy on the issue of white monopoly capital, but emphasizes monopoly capital and not white monopoly capital. The ANC Youth League believes that this is a right-wing departure from the movement's historic perspective that the system of capital accumulation and ownership in South Africa has always been fundamentally white. The Youth League does not support a system that seeks to cast away the black majority and restricting them to lowly remunerated stock of cheap labor and consumer base for the output of white monopoly-controlled economic output. We therefore declare white monopoly capital as the enemy of the National Democratic Revolution.
Well, here's a look at the Youth League's proposed leadership slate for the ANC elective conference. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma for president, David Mabuza for deputy president, Ace Magashule for secretary general, Natim Tetwa for national chairperson, Maite Ngoane Mashabane for treasurer general, Jesse Duarte for deputy secretary general, and a second deputy secretary general there, Fikile Mbalula, has taken that position.
The ANC Youth League last year, after one of its meetings, said that after having analyzed the organization and its challenges, arrived to a conclusion that we would need two DSGs. The other one would look at the health of the organization. The other one would be responsible for monitoring and evaluation. As it stands now, the ANC depends on the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation in government to evaluate themselves. So we need that capacity from the tools to be able to monitor and evaluate government as to whether are they implementing policies and resolutions. There are many resolutions and policies of the organization that are not implemented. So we need that capacity in the tool house. Hence the proposal we have made, and we will be crisscrossing the country, lobbying structures of the organization to agree with us on this proposition.
Meanwhile, here's a touted Ramaphosa slate that is doing the rounds on social media. Cyril Ramaphosa for President, Zweli Mkhize for Deputy President, David Makora for Secretary General, Enoch Godongwana for Treasurer General, Vuyiswa Tulelo for Deputy Secretary General, and Thandi Modise for National Chairperson. Well, to discuss this further, we are joined by Professor Sipho Siepe, political analyst via satellite. We are also joined by Mr. Levin Dow, political analyst on the phone line. Good afternoon, or good evening rather, to the both of you. Professor Siepe, I'm going to start with you. Thank you for joining us here on ANN7 this evening. The ANC Youth League has now made it known that they are backing Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma for president of the ANC. Was this expected?
Yes, it was expected, but the ANC League has done even much more than just selecting one person. First of all, what it has done is to disrupt what has become a monologue in terms of the leadership of the future ANC. What we have heard in the last few weeks has been more of a discussion around one person, especially by the alliance partners. So what the ANC Youth League has decided to say is that we are going to disrupt this monologue that also appears to be media sponsored. But to simply say we are going to not only have one person, but will also indicate that we have thought hard about this. And if you look at the lineup, it's a lineup of people who in themselves individually are formidable members. If you look at, you have Nkosazana Zuma, who can be said to be tried and tested in the ANC, but who could also be said to be tried and tested in government. She's been a minister for almost 20 years. So this is not a newcomer in government. You look at Ace Makashule, you're talking about somebody who in the ANC is also formidable. This is a person who has been a provincial chair for a number of years, and who is now has brought in a lot of experience in government as a two-term premier. So you see the ANC Youth League that has said we are going to bring very strong people. You have somebody like Natim Tetwa, who in himself is also a former youth leaguer, but also somebody who is now experienced in government, and somebody who is also a leader in the subcommittee of the ANC, the subcommittee that deals with the issues that deal with the battle of ideas. So they have thought about this, and they have also made sure that they do not lose the capacity and the institutional memory that is located within somebody like Jesse Duarte. But they also went further to say, to bring a sense of excitement and rejuvenation, it will be also important to bring people like Fikile Mbalula, who will be able to corral young people. So you see a leadership that is very strong. David Mabuza, who is also the chairperson and the premier, he brings also a provincial support. So they have actually said, well, let's bring people who in their own can bring no less than 3 or 4 provincial support to make sure that this particular slate is supported. So in a sense, as you were also pointing out the other side, you can see that the ANC is unable to move away from the slate politics. But what one can now say is that at least there is an attempt to say, let's sophisticate the discussion beyond simply having one person versus another person, to simply say we bring a combination that will complement itself.
Professor Sipho Siepe, stay with us. We're going to get another view and opinion here this evening. Like I mentioned earlier, we joined via phone line by a political analyst as well, Mr. Levi Ndau. Good evening to you, sir, and thank you for joining us here on ANN7. The ANC Youth League has announced its top 7, stating that they would prefer 2 deputy secretary generals, one in the form of Jesse Duarte, the other Fikile Mbalula. Your reaction?
Thank you very much. I think one must indicate that in relation to the two deputies, that's a constitutional matter in which the ANC, the Youth League, still has to go to conference, make suggestions, and then if adopted, then that will actually be done. But what I see as well in the proposal by the Youth League, it's an attempt not to move away from the slate politics. And I think it's important for the members of the ANC to learn what happened when they were going to Polokwane, because there were two slates with two groups or two factions favoring this other group and the other favoring another. And all of us know what happened post-Polokwane, the formation of COPE. But also at the same time, there seemed to be a tendency by those that are influential within the ANC not to focus on real issues that are facing the ANC today, the policy conference that is coming, and all other issues that relate to certain members of the ANC in relation to their credibility. But I think also at the same time, it's important for the ANC to come with a strong leadership and avoid a situation where they might find themselves sitting in the opposition benches come 2019. I'm not saying that the decision of the ANC Youth League is wrong, but I think there seems to be a focus mainly on leadership than all other important issues that affect the ANC and South Africans in general.
Mr. Ndau, earlier this afternoon during that press briefing by the ANC Youth League, they were asked a question as to why not Cyril Ramaphosa as their preferred candidate. The ANC Youth League stayed away from comparing Cyril Ramaphosa and Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. But just in your view, why not Cyril Ramaphosa?
There is nothing wrong in the ANC Youth League having their own preference in terms of leadership. But one must also say at the same time that there has been a trend which is actually being pushed by those that are pro-Ramaphosa to say the deputy president of the ANC has always taken over as the president of the country. But I think also at the same time it's important for those in the ANC or for those who want to decide leadership in the ANC to behave in a manner that does not offend other members of the ANC, because the services that have been provided by some leaders of the ANC, including Ramaphosa, is quite remarkable. I listened to the views expressed by the Women's League in Hartebees, which does not even want to recognize the contribution that has been made by some leaders of the ANC, including Ramaphosa. And remember, there are a lot of people that support Nkosazana Zuma, even outside the ANC, and the same applies to to Cyril Ramaphosa. And I think it's important for the ANC to unify the ANC and unify the South African society. The slate politics in the ANC are very, very dangerous, and they are there to destroy the ANC. And I think it's important for the ANC to learn from their mistakes and move away from the factional slate politics.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ndau, for speaking to us this evening. We always appreciate your views and your comments. I'm going to go back to Professor Sipho Siepe just for one last question. Professor, the words radical economic transformation, rather, is something that we've heard a lot over the last couple of months. It's something that we've heard President Jacob Zuma championing as well. Do you think radical economic transformation will be the deciding factor ultimately when it comes to deciding between these slates?
Well, I don't think that will be the only thing that will decide. Ultimately, the ANC has always said it tries to get people who are tried and tested. But also it has to look into the future. It has to think of the fact that South Africa is a youthful country. So you have to bring that element of dynamism within the organization. But most importantly, what the Youth League is also trying to do is also to disrupt what has become a monologue, where the media has tended to focus on certain people and not others. What they have said is we have seen even some in the alliance partners who have taken it upon themselves to decide on the leadership of the ANC. So the Youth League is disrupting that. And secondly, the issue that is being raised is also a proper one, that what about the issues? And I think it is also important for those who want to lead South Africa to also focus on leadership and to focus on the issues. What they have actually done, they've tried to present themselves as better than others. And I don't think it is good for the ANC, even for themselves. What we need is not so much people to be throwing mud at others, but more to say, if I'm elected, these are the issues that I'm going to address, and this is how I'm going to address them. And at the moment, we have not seen more of that. We've seen more of mudslinging rather than of intellectual and political engagement about what are the issues on the table and how are we going to solve the terrible challenges that are facing this country of unemployment, inequality, and poverty. Instead, what we have, you have issues being sidelined, but let's hope that this entry by the ANC Youth League could actually begin to reshape the discourse. But what is most important is that the ANC must rise to the notion of finding a way of dealing with what appears to be this inability to move away from the slate politics. But what the Youth League is saying is that we are very clear and we are going to try to present a formidable lineup. And they've actually presented one. But as it stands, it's still early stages. The debate must continue. But the debate should be more about what are the people bringing on the table, rather than people who are telling us who they hate most. We're not interested in the politics of hate. We're interested in the politics of development, the politics of solutions. And at the moment, there's been a failure, a dismal failure, despite the airtime that people are given in this country. We do not seem to be moving towards a solution-driven engagement.
Well, thank you very much, Professor. We hear your views and comments, and we appreciate you sharing those with us here on ANN7 this evening. That was Professor Sipho Siebe, political analyst. We are also joined on the phone line by another political analyst, Mr. Levi Ndo, just to talk to us about the ANC Youth League bringing forward their top 7 preferred leadership candidates. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, the preferred candidate for the position of ANC president, and David Mabuza, the position of Deputy President. Interesting that they brought forward 2 names for the Deputy Secretary General, that of J.C. Duarte and Fikile Mbalula as well, all ahead of the National Policy Conference set to take place later this year. But stay tuned to ANN.